Hey everyone, Vintage Sewing Machine Garage back here again with the Necchi. It's been about an hour and a half and I know I've got pretty low relative humidity today. Oh, maybe 20%, 25%, that's pretty good when it comes to paint curing. Now it's been about an hour and a half since I applied the Tester's flat black enamel, okay? And now I am going to apply the gloss, and this is a new jar I just bought. And again, even though it's a new jar that I bought, I'm still going to stir it just with the end of my paintbrush handle here, because all paints settle, and solvent-based paints particularly, they tend to separate. Now again, remember what I mentioned in the part one of this video. Remember, you've got two windows. I'm emphasizing this for a reason. You have two windows where you can recoat a paint like this. You can do it within 2 hours or so, or you need to wait 24 hours. Now, some people do 36, but remember, your humidity level is going to have a huge impact on how long. So always err on the side of caution. That means you got to wait 2 days. Oh, great. But once your 2 days are up, the paint should be cured. Unless it's been raining for 2 days, then I would wait until the humidity drops and give it some curing time. So I could have gone with 2 coats of gloss, but now when I put my second coat on, it's going to be easier for me to see where I'm painting, where I'm at, where I'm not at, and that'll be helpful. Okay, now I've got a light so all of you and my eye can all see what I'm doing here. And remember, load your brush with just a moderate amount of paint. Don't layer it on there. When people paint anything, there's always the temptation to just get it done, and they overload the brush. You can see how much I've got here. I'm not going crazy. I don't need a lot. And again, thick coats are not good. Thick coats don't dry properly. Traditional paints like this, they really shine when you do gradual thin coats. Again, patience. You hear me use patience a lot when it comes to restoring sewing machines. I think patience is our middle name. Now, I am going to, let's see what I can do with my big brush here. I'm probably going to want that smaller brush back again. So let's go and grab that. And honestly, in the big picture of things, this is not taking me very long at all. It's not that time consuming, right? And very often, if I have little tiny paint chips, I might touch them up or not. I'm a big believer in leaving the patina on a machine, little scratches. You clean it, you make sure it's functioning properly, and of course, some of you, this is subjective. Some of you may not like having chips. Some of you may have machines that are really, and I mean really, rough in terms of paint. Although I haven't found that to be common. That's pretty rare, but it can certainly happen. I'm just using a little shop light here, but any kind of, they sell flashlights you can wear on your forehead like a miner's light. Those can be really useful because then you have your hands free. You don't have to just go with one hand. Now I'm going to come back up top, so I'll move the camera. One thing I should also mention is sometimes when you're putting on a new coat of paint, some of you might look at that and think, gosh, this new glossy paint, is it going to match up well with the older paints? Because even though the old paint was a gloss, it's older and it's had some wear on it. My experience is that that's not really an issue, because what will happen is, and you guys, let's zoom in. I want you to see, I did not do a lot of brushing in. I put the paint on the brush, I got it on there, and I left it alone. Again, you don't want to overly fuss with it, because these very small brush marks you see here now, many, if not all of that, is going to level out. That's one of the great things about a solvent-based paint, is that it levels really well. How well, we'll see, but my expectation is that it will when it dries, of course, it's going to look glossy, as it should. Now, what I was going to say, though, about the other part, let's say that you got some micro scratches in the old paint. When you go back to buff the entire machine with sewing machine oil, this is after this paint has dried and cured. You don't want to put oil on it now, obviously. But once that happens, right? Now I'm going to probably take a little X-Acto. I got a little over paint there, but that'll come right off this piece. I can deal with that, no problem. Now, what I was saying is, once this has dried and cured, the gloss, what you can do is after you buff and clean and oil the older paint, it's going to be so close you're really not going to be able to see any difference. It's not that dramatic. And the black is easy to match, even though there are different shades of black. I know that sounds weird. But there you go, guys. I got within that early window, so I don't have to wait 48 hours. And that's it. You know, that's what I've done because I had a big enough area of paint loss that I really wanted to basically repaint that. And some of this went over the old paint. Now, so far, with all of the Singers and Necchis and just any machine that I have done up to now, but remember, I don't put paint on every machine that I have, but every one that I have touched, I have had no problems in terms of getting incompatibility or chemical reactions between the testers and the original paints that were used. I'm not saying they're the same chemistry, but they must be close enough in my experience. But remember, what I mentioned to you all, always test something first because, you know, companies made production changes over the years. They may have different paint formulas. So again, you can take an area like, let's zoom, or not zoom, let's tilt the camera and I'll show you, right? So let's say you lifted up the machine out of the table, or you tilted it back, you know, underneath the bed here, that is also painted. You could, on a clean surface there, test something because the paint should be the same or very similar to what's on the area of the machine that is visible when it's being used, and you should be able to test it and know that that's not an issue or a problem. And for cleaning with the testers, they do sell their own solvent. I have found that if I use the 91% rubbing alcohol that you guys see me use for all sorts of stuff, I can clean my brushes with this. It actually will. I don't know that it's exactly the solvent that Testers has, and maybe theirs is better. But for the purposes of what I'm doing, I can clean my brushes with the 91% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. And it seems to work good. So there you go, guys. I never thought I would make a video and talk about how paint dries, but there you have it. Paint is one of those things people often oversimplify. They just think, oh, it's paint. I've painted before. But there are details you need to pay attention to. And, you know, making this video took longer than actually doing the paint itself. But again, always remember, like I showed in part one, be sure that you get the loose paint off. You don't have to sand it. You don't have to grind it. You don't want to do that. I took a cotton swab and was just pushing off loose paint, you know, just applying pressure. Any loose paint came off. Then I took the alcohol and I cleaned the metal, the bare metal, make sure there's no residual oil or grease. Good chance there could be. It is a sewing machine. It's had oil around it all its life. And then, of course, I put the first coat, which I chose flat just to make the second one easier to see what I was doing and applying. And now I did it within the right curing time window. And now we'll just let this dry. And in a couple of hours, it'll be dry to the touch. Should be, unless it starts to rain. And in a few days, it will be fine. And I'll keep carrying on with the rest of the restoration on the Necchi. But this is, like I say, I don't get the opportunity to do any painting on machines. But this is one of those times. I think it's the first video I've ever made on the topic. So there you go, guys. I'm not going to record the paint drying. I will spare you that. But I hope this was helpful for any of you who may have areas of a machine that you want to touch up or repair. Now, keep in mind that it can be important if you have an area like that on the bed of the machine. If you ever have paint flaking, some of you will have machines that do this, very few, but some. You always want to make sure that you've repaired the surface and you've touched up in a way that keeps it smooth because you don't want your fabric to snag. But the base of this machine is gorgeous. Most of this Necchi was gorgeous. It just needed to be cleaned and of course given the full overhaul service. But it's one of the only machines I've had that I could really say, hey, let's do a touch up, and the rest of it's so beautiful. I wanted it to dress up well, right? Because they're incredible machines in terms of their heirloom quality. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. If you have questions or comments about touching up sewing machines, when is a good time, when is not, leave your comments down below, and we will see you next time.